Hi guys, welcome to Satu Career 2.0 online nursing channel. We are discussing the AIMS NORCET exams model test 6.0 answer key. So in this model test we had 100 questions. So let's see the answer for all those 100 questions one by one. Let's see the first question in this answer key. Before that, if you are not yet a subscribe our channel, please subscribe now. Also click the bell icon to get the latest notification about our new videos. Now let's see the first question. So in the first question, vitamin K is prescribed for a neonate. A nurse prepares to administer this medication in which muscle site? Option A, triceps, B, deltoid, C, biceps, D, vastus lateralis. So when you administer vitamin K to a neonate, so which muscle you should prefer to administer this medication? The right answer is option D, vastus lateralis. The rationale we can see now. So newborns are at risk for developing the vitamin K deficiency. Because of that, the bleeding can occur, and this may needs to because of this we need to administer vitamin K to overcome the prenatal deficiency of vitamin K. So the Canadian Pediatric Society and the College of Family Physicians of Canada has recommended IM administration of a single dose of vitamin K at 0.5 milligram to 1.0 milligram to all newborns. So this is administered in vastus lateralis, that is in the lateral anterior thigh muscles. So this is the rationale for the answer. Now move on to question number 2. Uh, an 8-year-old admitted to the hospital in sickle cell crisis. Appropriate nursing care during the period includes option A, cold compress to the painful joints. Option B, restrict fluid until crisis is over. Option C, analgesic administration. Option D, active range of motion exercise to all joints. So 8-year-old child who is admitted to because of sickle cell crisis. So which appropriate nursing action you can include in the plan of care? The right answer is option C, analgesic administration is very important. Sickle cell crisis can induce severe pain. So sickle cell disease is a group of hereditary blood disorder and it affects the hemoglobin. Sickle cell anemia is inherited when both the parents of the affected offspring carry the sickle cell trait and have the heterozygous genotype. So patients with sickle cell anemia may experience complications such as sickle cell painful crisis. The prolonged interaction of the sickled and endothelial cells along with plasma constituents is responsible for painful crisis in these patients. The pain experienced by may be classified as either chronic, mild, prolonged pain due to destruction of bones, joints, and visceral organs, or the pain can be of acute, but it can be severe pain due to destruction of microvascular beds. Based on the pain pathophysiology, physicians frequently choose non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, that is NSAIDs, paracetamol, and opiates to treat sickle cell painful crisis. So the priority intervention is to reduce the pain here. Now move on to question number 3. Which neonatal behavior is most commonly associated with fetal alcohol syndrome? Option A, hypoactivity. B, poor wake and sleep pattern. Option C, high birth weight. Option D, high threshold of stimulation. So the characteristic feature which is commonly associated with fetal alcohol syndrome in a neonate behavior will be, the right answer is option B, poor wake and sleep patterns. Option B, poor wake and sleep pattern is associated with fetal alcohol syndrome. The rationale here, altered sleep patterns are caused by disturbance in the central nervous system from alcohol exposure in utero. Hyperactivity is characterized, generally noted. Low birth weight is a physical defect seen in neonates with fetal alcohol syndrome. Neonates with fetal alcohol syndrome generally have low threshold for stimulation. They don't have high threshold for stimulation. Hence, the answer is altered sleep pattern is right here. Move on to question number 4, image-based question. Identify the abnormality in this picture. Option A, retrognathia. Option B, micrognathia. Option C, glossoptosis. Option D, mental retardation. So this condition is known as, there is a very short lower jaw, so that is called micrognathia. Option B, micrognathia is a condition which is characterized by very low lower jaws. Question number 5. So we have the rational here, micrognathia or mandibular hypoplasia, we can say. It is a condition in which a child has a very small lower jaw. Retrognathia, formerly it is known as mandibular retrognathia, is a condition in which the lower jaw is set further back. It goes further back, so it is going further back than the upper jaw. Glossoptosis is a medical condition and it is abnormality which is involving the downward displacement and retraction of the tongue. Glosso means tongue, so it is the problem related to the tongue. So here the answer is micrognathia, which means very small lower jaw. Question number 5. In deep vein thrombosis, which sign is positive? Option A, Troussier sign. B, Chopstick sign. C, Sova sign. D, Homan sign. The right answer, the sign which is positive in deep vein thrombosis is option D, Homan sign. So here we have different types of sign. Homan sign, it is a positive Homan sign which we test in the cough pain at dorsiflexion of the foot, and it is thought to be associated with presence of thrombosis. That's why it is positive in the deep vein thrombosis. SOVA sign, it is a sign of peritoneal irritation or often present about but are not specific for appendicitis. SOVA sign is elicited by having the patient lie on his or her left side while the right thigh is flexed. Backward pain may indicate inflamed appendix. So SOVA sign is associated with appendicitis. The Chopstick sign and Troussier sign you know very well. They are associated with hypocalcemia. The Chopstick sign, there is twitching of the muscle innervated by the facial nerve that leads to the abnormal reaction to the stimulation of the facial nerve. So in Troussier sign, it is also positive in hypocalcemia. The sign is observable as a carpopedal spasm induced by ischemia secondary to an inflation of sphygmomanometer cuff, commonly on individual arms to 20 millimeter of mercury over the systolic blood pressure for 3 minutes. So that time they will have a carpopedal spasm. So here the Homan sign talks about the deep vein thrombosis. So that is the right answer here. Move on to question number 6. A mother of a term neonate asks what the thick white cheesy coating is on his skin. Which correctly statement describes this finding? Option A, lanugo. B, milia. C, nervous filaments. Option D, vernix. So the mother is asking about what is the thing present in her newborn baby, which is thick, white, cheesy coating layer on the skin. The right answer it is option D, vernix. So what is vernix? First you should know the vernix is called vernix gaseosa. It is a white, creamy, naturally occurring biofilm covering the skin of the fetus during the last trimester of pregnancy. Vernix coating on the neonatal skin it protects the newborn skin and facilitates extrauterine adaptation of the skin in the first postnatal week if not washed away after the birth. Lanugo. So it is a type of fine hair that grows on the bodies of the human fetuses while they are developing in the womb. These hairs disappear after by birth or shortly after when the vellus has replaced them. Vellus hairs are also naturally fine and transparent but thicker than lanugo hairs. So milia are a tiny white bumps that appear across a baby nose, chin or cheeks. Milia are common in newborns but can occur at any age. A circumscribed stable malformation of the skin, sometimes in the oral mucosa, which is not due to external causes. The excess of tissue may involve epidermal connective tissue, adrenal nerves, or vascular elements. Most are either brown, black, or pink. They may appear on any part of the skin, vary in size and thickness, and it can occur in any group, or it can be occur alone also. So, but here the answer is the cheesy white creamy substance which is occurring naturally over the skin of the newborn, that is Vernix gaseosa is the right answer here. Now let's see the question number 7. A 35-year-old multigravida aborted 5 months back at 17 weeks of gestation. She has not got her periods yet. Urine pregnancy test is negative. Estrogen progesterone withdrawal test is negative. The likely diagnosis is option A, ovarian failure, B, pituitary failure, C, Asherman syndrome, D, anovulation. So here a 35-year-old multigravida mother who got aborted 5 months back at the 17 weeks of gestation, who does not get the periods yet, but the urine pregnancy test is negative, estrogen progesterone withdrawal test is also negative. The likely diagnosis is option D, it is a Asherman syndrome. The rationale, very simple. Asherman syndrome is an uncommon acquired gynecological disorder characterized by changes in the menstrual cycle, patients experiencing the reduced menstrual flow, increased cramping and abdominal pain, eventual cessation of menstrual cycles, known as amenorrhea, and in many instances it leads to infertility. That is all about Asherman syndrome, which is the probable diagnosis for this multigravida mother. Question number 8, image based question. What type of procedure you are seeing in this image? Option A, colposcopy, B, pap smear, C, dilatation and curettage, option D, endometrial uterine biopsy. So this procedure is pap smear. Option B, pap smear is right. Question number 9. A client in a preterm labor 32 weeks who is dilated to 5 centimeter has been given magnesium sulfate and the contractions have stopped. If the labor can be delayed for next 2 days, which of the following medication does the nurse expect that will be prescribed by the physician? Option A, betamethasone. Option B, sufentanil. Option C, fentanyl. Option D, butyrophenol tartrate. So prolong prolong the labor for another 2 days. So which medication that is will be prescribed? The nurse can expect for the prescription of the medicine. The right answer is option A, betamethasone. So let's see the rationale here. The rationale, the betamethasone is the drug given here. The it is a glucocorticoids, and dexamethasone, either betamethasone or dexamethasone are used to increase the production of surfactant, which aids in the fetal lung maturation. It is given to the patients who are in preterm labor at 28 to 32 weeks of gestation. If the labor can be stopped for 2 days, 2 more days. The labor which is supposed to happen today, if you want to delay for 2 more days, we can go for either betamethasone or dexamethasone, but it should be given in 28 to 32 weeks of gestation period. Question number 10. Investigation of choice for diagnosis of vasa previa is option A, color Doppler, B, colonoscopy, option C, colposcopic examination, option D, hysterosalpingography. To diagnose the vasa previa, we need to go for color Doppler. Option A is right. Next question, question number 11. So here the rationale, if the placenta is complete previa or it is low lying, a follow up ultrasound is indicated to assess for vasa previa. If vasa previa is suspected, a transvaginal ultrasound with pulse wave Doppler may confirm the diagnosis. Now move on to question number 11. A client with a missed abortion at 29 weeks of gestation is admitted to the hospital. The client will most likely to be treated with option A magnesium sulfate, option B dinoprostone, option C calcium gluconate, option D bromocrestin. So which drug is given to the client who have missed abortion at 29 weeks of gestation? The right answer is we go for dinoprostone, that is Prostin E. The rationale: the client with a missed abortion will have induction of labor. Prostin E, dinoprostone, is a form of prostaglandin used to soften the cervix. Magnesium sulfate is used for preterm labor and preeclampsia. Calcium gluconate is the antidote for magnesium sulfate, and Paradol is a dopamine receptor stimulant, and it is used to treat Parkinson's disease here. Move on to question number 12. So which artery is supplying the primary motor area of the brain? So the red color area in the image is called primary motor area. Which artery is supplying blood to this area? Option A anterior and middle cerebral artery. Option B basilar and pontine artery. Option C posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Option D anterior inferior cerebellar artery. This motor area is supplied by two arteries, namely anterior and middle cerebral artery. The image shows which deformity identified. That is the question number 13. Option A mallet bone deformity. Option B finger flexion deformity. Option C Bioneer's deformity. Option D swan neck deformity. So this finger looks like a neck of a swan. So the answer is swan neck deformity. Move on to question number 14. For the antenatal administration of glucocorticoids, which among the following is an indication? Option A preterm labor, B preeclampsia, C postpartum hemorrhage, option D antepartum hemorrhage. So in the antenatal period to administer glucocorticoids, so the primary indication is, the right answer is option A preterm labor. So during preterm labor, a single course of corticosteroid is recommended for a pregnant woman between 24 to 33 weeks of gestation who are at risk for preterm delivery within 7 days, including those who have ruptured membrane and multiple gestations. Now move on to question number 15. Name the traction which you are seeing in this image. Option A cervical traction, B halo traction, option C Perkins traction, option D Hamilton Russell traction. The right answer is this type of traction is called halo traction. Move on to question number 16. In which condition Cullen's sign is associated? A. Nephritis, B. Gastritis, C. Cellulitis, D. Pancreatitis. Cullen's sign is seen in pancreatitis is right answer. So Cullen's sign is a hemorrhagic discoloration of the umbilical area due to intraperitoneal hemorrhage from any cause. One of the most frequent causes is acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis. Question number 17. Which position is used to place a patient during pneumonectomy procedure? Option A left lateral decubitus position. Option B Trendelenburg position. B dorsal decubitus positions. Option D supine position. So during pneumonectomy procedure, the patient should be placed in option A left lateral decubitus position, which will be comfortable for surgeon, as well as in this position there is good expansion of the area of the lungs. Question number 18. A client with 28 weeks of gestation comes to the emergency department because she thinks that she is in labor. To confirm the diagnosis of preterm labor, the nurse would expect the physical examination to reveal option A, regular uterine contraction without cervical dilatation, option B, irregular uterine contraction with no cervical dilatation, option C, painful contraction with cervical dilatation, option D, regular uterine dilatation with cervical dilatation. So which physical examination finding reveal that the client is in preterm labor? The right answer is option A, regular uterine contraction without cervical dilatation. So the rationale is regular uterine contraction, that is every 10 minutes or more, along with cervical dilatation before 38 weeks of gestation or rupture of fluids indicates a preterm labor. Question number 19. HIV post-exposure profile should be started with within how many hours? Option A 1 to 2 hours, B 14 hours, C 18 hours, option D 72 hours. The post-exposure profile for HIV should be started within 72 hours is right answer here. Question number 19. The HPV survivors longer than HIV outside the body. So post-exposure prophylaxis needs to be started as soon as possible after the exposure and within 72 hours. Question number 20. Name the device which you are seeing in the image. Option A, newborn nebulizer sets. Option B, jet nebulizer sets. Option C, air humidifier. Option D, peep valve. So this type of device is called jet nebulizer sets. Jet nebulizer sets. Question number 21. How long should a diaphragm be left in after intercourse? Option A 4 hours, B 6 hours, C 12 hours, D 24 hours. So the diaphragm should be left for minimum 6 hour duration. Minimum 6 hour duration. Always leave your diaphragm in place for at least 6 hours after the last time you had sex, but don't leave it in for more than 24 hours. If you have sex again, leave your diaphragm in, but put a new dose of spermicide into your vagina. Question number 23. So it's a image based question only. For complete blood count, which color vacuum thinner should be used? For complete blood count, which color vacuum thinner should be used? Option A, gray top tube, B, red top tube, C, orange top tube, option D, lavender top tube. So for complete blood count, we should go for lavender top tube vacuum thinner, that is commonly used for complete blood count analysis. Question number 22. Lavender top tube for two purposes. One is complete blood count and HbA1c. Red top tube for drug level. Option the orange tube is for thrombin testing, and grey top tube is for glucose tolerance testing and alcohol. Question number 23. Late sign of benign prostatic hyperplasia is option A, decreased size and force of urinary stream. Option B, pain or burning during urination. Option C, dribbling or leaking after urination. Option D, inability to start or continue a urinary stream. So the late sign of benign prostatic hyperplasia is dribbling or any leakage after urination. That is the late sign of prostatic hyperplasia. So question number 24, another image based question. It is a kangaroo's tail suture. So material. So this material is used for which types of procedure? Option A for suturing the joint capsule. Option B for repairing the hernias. Option C permanent wound support. Option D used to ligate the blood vessels. The right answer is the kangaroo tail, sorry, the kangaroo tendon sutures, the material which is taken from the tendons of the kangaroo, are used to joint capsule surgeries. For suturing the joint capsule in the orthopedics, we are using it.